Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always, with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, first of all, Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to
Yes.
everyone listening to this podcast right now, watching on YouTube, listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're doing. Hope you've all had a great time. Would have been nice if the Villa came up with a win as a late Christmas present, but we can't ask for too much, Dan, can we? We can't ask for too much. We always knew
No.
that was going to be a mean feat, but as it's kind of customary after these defeats, we're here the day after, clear heads, and and yeah, we're gonna talk through that game because I think some of the reaction that we've probably seen online and that we may have heard in and around the stadium is probably not as bad as I think the reality of the situation was. I think it's fair to say, mate.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Merry Christmas, guys. It's interesting you say that, we're here with a clear head because after a few too many Boxing Day beers last night, I wouldn't describe my head as being clear on this early Tuesday morning. But no, all good, mate. Yeah, it's very it's been quite polarizing defeat, I would say. It seems that a lot of the reaction there isn't really a middle ground. Some people are either quite enthused by the performance, and it seems like the other camp are really not happy with it at all. And I'm struggling to sort of clarify within myself where I lie with it and how I felt about it. I thought it was a very difficult game to read, um, quite literally a game of two halves. I
Yeah,
would say in terms of the Villa performances. But yeah, I'm excited to get into it and to hear your thoughts, and be good to hear everybody else's as well. So as always, we love hearing what you guys just think. So drop your thoughts on the game in the comments because I found it quite difficult to read. And you're right in that I came away from it and I really wasn't happy. I think it's fair to say. But as is customary on the Villa Filler podcast after a defeat, leave it until the day after when, the emotion is perhaps run a little quieter. You can think things are in a bit more clarity. And I think, I'm interested to hear what you got to say on it, mate.
yeah, man. I think like first of all, the first bit of sort of perspective that I think we need to provide in the context that I think is needed is this is only Unai Emery's third Premier League game in charge. And
Yes.
we've won the first two. We've beaten Manchester United. We've beaten Brighton away, and it was always going to be difficult. We've had 6 weeks off, and I guess it does kind of beg the question: what happened in this training camp? I'm, by no means saying that they did nothing and it was a waste of time and it's all this stuff, but it's always going to be hard for teams coming back. And we mentioned it in the preview, mate. This is essentially the start of another season, right? So
Yep.
and as well, we're playing against Liverpool, and we did kind of mention the giant injury list that they had. Just to name a few, mate. You've got Luis Diaz, Roberto Firmino, Diogo Jota, Ibrahima Konate. Obviously, he's not injured; he's just been celebrating the World Cup. So they were without a fair few players. We were obviously without Emmy, which is maybe an understatement to call it the elephant in the room, the goalkeeping situation. But we can address that a bit later on. But yeah, I think it's just important to know that, like, I think there are encouraging signs. I think we saw sort of patterns of play and especially sort of in the average positions. I will put it in. I'm going to edit the podcast today, Dan, and I'm going to put it in. I'm going to make sure I put it in because it's an important one today because it's clear as day. 4-2-2, we have an identity for the first time in a long time, and you know clearly the players still need a bit more time to understand and fully sort of just know the system, essentially know where they
Yep.
need to be. I think John McGinn was probably more often than not in no man's land a lot of the time, delivered a few really good crosses, but I think there was probably a bit to be desired from my perspective in terms of his positional sense in this game. Um, but I think the way we set up, um, I don't want to call it naive against a team like Liverpool because obviously a 4-2-2 is innately very narrow, um, and there is a lot of impetus on the fullbacks there, which is probably a phrase that everyone's fed up of hearing as a Villa fan after Steven Gerrard tenure. And I was a bit. I mean, I don't know about you, mate. Ashley Young starting ahead of Matty Cash probably caught me off guard a little bit because Cashy came on in the Villarreal game and
Yes.
he,
Yeah.
he he played a bit of time, probably just under a half, I think. Um, and as I mentioned in the last podcast as well, I expected Matty and Leander and Emmy, obviously when he's back, to kind of to be the guys that everybody looks to on the pitch in terms of like we're setting the standards here, right? Um, so again, I think you kind of I don't want to say shoot yourself in the foot because I trust Unai completely, but there are a few sort of with how narrow we are and just how explosive Liverpool are on the counter attack. It's very easy for them to kind of pick holes. And yeah, I just think like the more I'm actually discussing it now, mate, the more I'm conflicted about it because it's like it's Liverpool. What do you expect? But um, that ball over the top pretty much every single time, whether it was Nunez, whether it was Salah, you really got the feeling that they could probably score from any of the counter attacks that
Yes.
they kind of pinged, didn't you?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. You've said two, there's been a word that has been ringing in my ears ever since I walked out of Villa Park yesterday, and it was naive.
Yeah,
I've got to be honest with you. It was really, we played against Liverpool like we'd never seen them play before. Every single ball over the top caused problems for us, and we didn't adjust to it. Those balls, and they kept hitting that diagonal over Ashley Young for a runner in behind him. And we didn't drop the defensive line. We didn't put enough pressure on the midfielders who were playing these balls. They're so good at those crosses that come in from deep positions from the fullback and swing in behind your defensive line, between your defensive line and the goalkeeper, and they have those players running onto them. We just kept getting caught out by it time and time again. We really struggled to play out of our defensive third into the second third. We couldn't get across the halfway line. And we know how good Liverpool's press is, and we know how they like to squeeze you high up the pitch. And we tried to go long, and I thought, I mean, Ollie Watkins is probably, there's almost a podcast in itself there at this point. I thought his hold up play was good. I thought there were several times where in the first half, particularly where we went to feet and he was able to bring others into play. And I mean, the Olsen's distribution doesn't necessarily help this, but I didn't. It was like we've never seen Liverpool play before. Like we really played into their hands. I felt, um, and once all I'll say is this: we really struggled to get out our own half. But once we did get into their half, I thought we were really menacing, and pound for pound, I thought our attacks felt just as dangerous as theirs. I was sat in the North Stand yesterday, not in my usual Trinity Road seat, and I was right behind Trent's pass into Robbo, and it was glorious. It was glorious. Every now and again, there was a goal scored at Villa Park, and I'm not mad about it. That goal was incredible. It was like peak Liverpool all over again. And when you're playing against a team that can do that, you sometimes you just have to hold your hands up. However, what I will say is that the second goal is very much the opposite. And we had these really polarizing moments throughout the game. And I thought the formation is okay. I'm really not sure on Guinea in that sort of wide 10 role. And I think that we do need a little bit of figuring out. But in terms of how we actually tried to combat Liverpool and play against them, I thought we played straight into their hands.
yeah. I think and like the thing is, it's naivety if it doesn't work, and it's bravery if it does. Right, that's the
Yeah,
problem. And uh, you know, you'll only know how well the game plan works at 90 minutes, right? Whether
yeah,
you've won or lost. Um, and listen, we've seen teams take it to Liverpool. We've seen Fulham do it. We've seen it Nottingham Forest do it. It is possible to to strike a blow to these guys. The table the table says everything, mate. It's so telling. They've not had a brilliant season. And again, you can put that down to injuries. You can put that down to losing Mane. You can whatever. But it I don't know. I felt coming into this game, I thought that we could potentially shock them. I didn't expect Liverpool to be as well drilled as they were. Maybe it was as a result of seeing the Villarreal game and perhaps leaving that feeling that we were maybe a little bit undercooked and maybe we needed a little bit more time. Wasn't too inherently worried about that if I'm being completely honest. But um, at the end of the day, it's Liverpool, and it's annoying. But I think as well, what doesn't help is obviously you've got your two sitters, you've got your double pivot in Louise and Kamara, which I thought they were both hot and cold yesterday. If we're being completely fair, It is absolutely the partnership that we should go for. But looking at the sort of the average positions of the Liverpool players now as well. Um, Jordan Henderson was almost like an inverted winger, like because
Yes.
like the energy that this man had and the license we gave him to play and to run and drive with the ball, like they completely overrun that midfield. And you have to look at Guinea and you have to look at Buendia and think, when we're in the defensive phase, we know this has to be a 4-4-2. You guys have to sit in. You've got to tuck in. We've got to make that midfield as compact as possible, and try and suffocate them because out of possession there, we should have a one man advantage in that midfield. That's how it should work. So they should be chasing shot. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just it's a bit it's questionable, but again, that will come with time. That's patience. That's something that will be worked on, and it's probably something that maybe not against Tottenham, but against the Wolves. Come the new year, you can get away with that, but it's the top sides
Yeah.
that punish you. And I mean, we need to talk about Robin Olsen, don't we? We do need to talk about Robin
Yes, I think
Olsen.
so. I
And
think so.
listen, like the first thing for me, we need to separate like outright just abusing the guy and like legitimate criticism. That's the first thing. We're all adults here. We can absolutely say that Robin Olsen was crap without calling him every name under the sun. I don't know about you, mate, where you were sat, but the reaction was certainly mixed for me in the lower Holte. I me personally made sure every time he came over and grabbed a drink, did whatever, I give him a clap, try and give him that confidence because like we owe him that at the end of the day, in my opinion. Like we all know that we're kind of up shit's creek without a paddle when it comes to not having Emi Martinez in goal. But if we that nervousness and that anxiety that we feel in the crowd for having him in goal, that energy is transferring directly into him. That being said, I think my only glaring issue with Robin Olsen, aside from the fact he conceded 3 goals, I only think one of them, which I think the third one, from a goalkeeping perspective, he has to do a lot better. Is just looking at the numbers, man. Now, SofaScore give him a 7 out of 10 rating, which I think is I don't know. I don't know if that's fair. I think that's the highest rating of any Villa player. I mean, Ollie Watkins scored and he got a 6.9. Um, but sort of looking at the other numbers, he made 6 saves, mate. Apparently, 3 runouts, and all 3 of them were successful. That's horseshit because the third goal was like from a runout that he didn't make, or he made too late. But it's the pass accuracy, 69% pass accuracy. Only 25 of 36 passes that he made yesterday were accurate, and only 16 of 17. Sorry, only 6 of 17 long balls were accurate. We were trying to play that long diagonal onto Joel Matip all day long, and only 6 of them came off. Now, listen, Emi Martinez's distribution is also very questionable. I think that's something that I have to caveat this point with. There are times where I'm watching his long kicks and I'm just screaming because I don't know what he's doing and I don't know how he doesn't work on it in his game. But one of the funniest stats that I'm looking at here, mate, as well. Um, Obviously, they list all the defensive, offensive, possession based stats or whatever. Um, they've got dribbles past one. He's a goalkeeper and he was dribble past. Like, I mean, you have to laugh, don't you? You have to laugh. Um,
Ah,
but it's like I just like we knew what we were getting ourselves in for. So it's almost like what's like it's wasted energy losing our mind over this, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? Because he's not Emi Martinez, and I think the discussion shouldn't be Robin Olsen is shit. The discussion should be we need a better backup goalkeeper, right? I feel like that is a much more it's a much better way of spending our time rather than going, oh my god, I hope we never see him again, get him out of the club, all this kind of stuff because it's just not nice, is it?
no, it's a really to give him his flowers. I thought he was a lot better in the second half. I thought first half he was really poor, and I thought he was a lot better in the second half. He made some good saves, and it's important to sort of preface that. And I sort of speak from experience at a very amateur level. That goalkeeping is much like any position, I would actually perhaps go as far as saying perhaps more so is so inherently based on confidence. You know, your ability to come for crosses, your ability to be brave and accurate with your distribution. Almost every facet of goalkeeping, you have to be brave. You have to have that confidence and back yourself to make split second decisions and reap the rewards. And he was so clearly shot and devoid of that. But that's an issue in itself. And that's
Yeah.
something that obviously we're all aware of, and it's upsetting. But you know, we were aware of this, and it's hard to have too much of a say on it. I think we have to be a bit level-headed with it, and accept that that's why he's the backup goalie, because he's not as good as Emi Martinez. And you know, it'd be interesting to see what happens there, because obviously we've heard some stories to say that Emery's not happy with Martinez, and he's, you know, found him a bit of a difficult figure to work with in his early, you know, Villa tenure, and he's looking at Yassine Bono from Sevilla as a potential replacement. And yeah, I felt for Robin, but he had a bit of a. I thought he played better in the second half. I thought he made some good saves. Obviously, stopped that one-on-one from Darwin Nunez. It's not the best save in the world, but when you're low on confidence, there's no such thing as a bad save. Every single one helps build you up again. And so, yeah, I'm not going to be too heavy on it. I don't think we need to say too much else. Like, I think we've hit the nail on the head there, mate. I think everything that wasn't with his feet, I thought was okay. There's a couple of times where I think to come out and, like, you know, obviously there was that one where he came out and beat Salah to that header and
Mm.
stuff like that. Like that's all stuff that needs to be commended, I think, when you're watching a goalkeeper that's low on confidence. And I thought he did better in the second half.
Yeah, and I think it looks like Emmy's going to be back for the Spurs game, but it's like it's one of them where, like, if we know that he's not great, and like Emery will have a fair idea now because he's played in the friendlies and he played in the cup, and there's now this game. Like, do you lose much playing Philip Marshall? I'd like, I think there is a genuine debate there. Like, you know, at least let's see what this lad's about and put him in a high pressure situation. You know, we've seen with like Kaimon Kelleher on occasions for Liverpool when he's stepped up. You know, he's saved penalties in cup games, and he's proven at a young age that he's able to be a hero. And listen, I know he plays for his country, and he probably deserves to play more just based on what we've seen. But you never know until you give him that chance. So, you know, if for whatever reason Emmy can't play against Spurs, like, why not play Marshall? I don't think you lose too much, to be completely honest. You know, it's Spurs at the end of the day. I think they're going to come back, and I think they're going to. It's going to be a really difficult game at home. You know, they've shown against Brentford that they had it in them to come back from a 2 goal deficit. Um, we probably won't. I don't see much point in previewing the Spurs game, to be honest, after with such a short turnaround. But you know, we can kind of talk about it briefly here on the end of this podcast, I guess, mate. But like for me, I think like the big takeaways again is, like, you know, we have to talk about Ollie Watkins, because I just find it's every week now. It's every week we're talking about Ollie Watkins, and we love Ollie Watkins, and he does everything right up until the point where he has to put the ball in the back of the net. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but Danny Ings would have scored 2 of the chances that Ollie Watkins had yesterday. You know, the headers of the back
Yeah,
post, and he would find himself in better positions. And it's frustrating because, again, everything that Ollie does off the ball and how hard he works for the team, and the way he, to be honest, flatline bullied Joel Matip yesterday, is everything you could want from your centre forward. But the only thing that matters is that you put the ball in the back of the net. And it was a fantastic headed goal that he did. Alisson completely rooted to the spot. I called it as it was happening. I could see he was in acres of space, and they're the positions that you want him to be in. More often than not, he was trying to fight between Matip and Van Dijk, and that's never going to work. The moment that he peeled off, I think it's Matip who plays on the right, between Matip and Trent, and was in that space, and Dougie was looking for someone. It was clear as day to me. I'm screaming, Ollie's at the back post, and then he obviously manages to direct the header across the goal, and it was a fantastic finish. It really was. So I do have to give him the credit there, but it's like it's the age old Danny Ings, Ollie Watkins, who came first, chicken or the egg? Do Aston Villa need a clinical striker? And I like we. The answer is yes, and it sounds like it could be Danjuma, but again, to kind of hark back to the debate that we had on the last podcast, mate, I don't think he's the clinical striker that Aston Villa need because he isn't a clinical striker, and he's not even a striker really. If we're being completely honest, it like Arnott Danjuma is Ollie Watkins with a bit more sauce. Like realistically,
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's a really difficult situation, mate. And the one thing that I will say is that Villa do need a clinical striker, and we're going to struggle to get one.
yeah,
In fact, I would go now and say I will be impressed if we do get one. I don't think we can. There's not a great abundance out there. We're not shopping on that elite bracket. Um, I think the best that we could hope for is someone like a Tammy Abraham, who has 3 league goals this season.
yeah,
That's a
perspective.
fact. Tammy Abraham has not been clinical. His finishing has been awful this season, and so I, do you fix the problem? I'm not saying he's not. I think he's a better player than anything we have at the club, but it's not like he's a glaringly obvious solution. Your Gianluca Scamacca's, I think, is the bracket that we're shopping in. I think that kind of player is what we could hope for, and I think. Well, I'll say this, mate. I'll say this. If Villa want a clinical striker who scored plenty of goals in the Premier League, is a great 1-2 touch finisher in the box, we just went and bought one from Southampton, and his name's Danny Ings, and he sits on the bench and he can't.
Yeah,
He doesn't score the goals. He doesn't like. He is a clinical striker in that he's not going to give you too much, but he's going. He if you want someone that's going to gobble up chances, we signed one and it hasn't really worked. And so it's very difficult. I mean, you look at Darwin Nunez, right? Who is one of my favorite players as a neutral to watch because he's absolutely chaos. I love him. And he is a volume striker, right? In that he will go and put 2 1-on-1s wide, but he's still averaging a goal every other game in his starts. The records are there, and that's a 90 million pound striker we watched yesterday, who's running through on goal twice and putting 2 1-on-1s wide of the far post. There's like it's very
yeah,
I think it's easy to sit here and say that Villa need a clinical striker. We need someone who can put the ball in the back of the net. So do most of the clubs. So do Manchester United. Like there's, we saw it can be done. You can play without one, and I think we can go forward with Ollie Watkins. But we need guys like Leon Bailey, 2 air shots from him yesterday.
yeah,
To step up, John McGinn arriving at the far post and putting a header straight into the turf and like straight at Allison. Like you can get away with it if your striker isn't on full full capacity, if the other players chip in, and their finishing was just as poor last night. And I'm not going to give them as much stick for it because inherently it's not their job. And I thought Leon had a really good game yesterday. I thought he caused a lot of problems, and it's really good to see that. But ultimately, like he's had chances to score, Guinea had chances to score. I thought we were generally as a team really indecisive in and around the box. But the striking issue is really difficult, mate. And I think someone like Danjuma is perhaps your best bet because I don't think he's great, but given that the lack of strikers there are, I think if you're looking to convert a sort of wide man into a striker, that might be the best you can get at this point in time.
yeah. I think that, but that's the problem, though, isn't it? It's like you're taking another gamble on another wide man that isn't a striker. Like Langer and everyone else at the club is paid to identify these targets. So obviously they're going to be way more qualified than we are. But I don't think Danjuma is the solution to all of our problems. I do genuinely think he's a slight upgrade on Ollie Watkins. I think on the ball he's obviously light years better, but in terms of output in the Premier League, will he be able to do it? I don't know. You guys would have to let us know if we've got any Dutch listeners or if we've got any Villarreal fans in the comments. I mean, we've had plenty of Argentina and Poland fans in, so shout out to you guys. Um, but I mean, like at the end of the day, mate, like we did create all of these chances, but they clearly, they weren't on another day. They may go in, they may not, but we accumulated an XG of 1.44 compared to Liverpool's 2.71, and it's hard to argue with that. The players have to do better with the chances they created. I don't think that XG is very reflective on how good the chances actually were, more how bad the finishing was, if we're being completely honest and looking at it. And hopefully that's something we can improve on. And listen, like going into Tottenham, against like all of these sort of top six teams, Ollie Watkins generally delivers, and like he has in this game. Obviously, he's missed a fair few chances, but he still scored, and he scored at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last season as well. He scored twice actually, but one of them was offside. So I think the goal will obviously give him the confidence that he needs, and I think like I imagine Hugo Lloris will probably be in goal, but again, like I think he's absolutely pony. To be honest, it doesn't matter if it's Fraser Forster or Hugo Lloris. I think they're both fairly average keepers, to be frank. So I can see Villa getting goals here, but we're going to have to come out of the stalls, start strong, and I think that's the one thing that we probably didn't have in this game. I think we allowed Liverpool to dictate the tempo, and from there it was an uphill battle, and it was always going to be. We're going to have to come out flying against Tottenham because Brentford proved it the other day that they were just caught lacking, and that can happen. You can sucker punch them, and you have to be wary of the quality that they have. Harry Kane scores a fantastic goal in that game as well. It's a lesson in clinical finishing and getting you back in a game. But I think, like fundamentally, what the difference is going to be is how Villa start this game and the confidence that they can take from scoring against Liverpool, and like what Conte's doing at Spurs. It has me very conflicted, man, because it it works until it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? And as soon as it doesn't work, it's like it's the players, it's the owners, it's this, it's that, it's not being backed, it's whatever. Like Spurs have their weaknesses, and I do genuinely think that we can kind of allow them to have possession. Five in the midfield. You know what it's going to be. It's going to be emphasis on the wing back. So you're going to need Buendia, you're going to need McGinn tracking back, being a bit more compact, as we mentioned earlier on. And I do think that we can cause damage on the break, especially as you say, mate, Leon Bailey. I expect him to step up in these moments as well. So, let's not just put the whole focus on Ollie Watkins or
No,
Danny
yeah.
Ings or whatever. Like, everybody needs to step up. You're absolutely right, mate. Let's get a score prediction from you, man, on this one. We need a score prediction.
Yeah, it's difficult, mate. It's difficult because I feel like it's a very difficult game, and one of the things that I didn't think helped us yesterday was um it was frenzied and it was chaotic, and I think Liverpool like that because they'll beat you at that game. Like if
Yeah,
you want to play high intensity, fast paced football, Liverpool beat you. I think you have to try and play it on your terms, and I think Spurs are a very different test in that regard. In that, then they won't be the prettiest team to watch, but they still pose so many dangers. And you have to play well for 90 minutes against the top sides. I mean, Brentford proved that. We proved that yesterday. You're not going to win games by playing well for 20, 30 minutes. Look at the Spurs game last season at home when we played a really good first half and still went in losing. Um, like if you give these teams one or two moments, they'll beat you. And it's hard to, based on what I saw yesterday, it's hard to imagine a completely changed Villa performance in a matter of a few days. So I'd like to say that we could go and get something from this, mate. I think we're not playing as I think Liverpool are turning it around. I think they're a better team than Tottenham. But they're just so hard to beat. They're so
yeah.
hard to beat, and I hope I'm proved wrong, mate. But if we come away with a point, I think we've done well. But if I had to give you a score, mate, um, I'll be positive, and I'll say that we can I'll take a draw. I'll go 2-2.
I'll take that, mate. We could score 2 goals away from home. I'll be absolutely buzzing with that. Um, and just as well, before we go, mate, on a last word on Emi Martinez. Did you see his tattoo?
Yes, I did.
That
I
that's
did. That's great.
fantastic. It's
That's
amazing,
great.
and what I love, I don't think many people picked up on it. He's had this tattoo. He's got the World Cup. He's got the 3 stars. He's got the dates. There's this nice little claret and blue detailing underneath the tattoo, which is absolutely wonderful. But the tattoo is in the exact position on his leg where he made that save in the 123rd minute.
I love it.
The beauty's in the details, mate. Absolutely stunning. Emi Martinez, please come back right now. Come back immediately. We need you. Um, but yeah, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, had a good Christmas, let us know by leaving a comment down below. Let us know who you'd want to address the striking situation as well. I think we could probably do a whole of the video on that. We can kind of go through who you guys would like, and we could kind of decide who's the best from there. I think that's probably a fun video to
Play
do.
Cameron Archer. Play Cameron Archer. I'll sing it from the rooftops, mate.
Give him his chance, Udo. Come on. And yeah, I mean, the since we hit 6K, the subs have been flying as well. So make sure you keep subscribing. We appreciate all the love, and yeah, we'll be doing
Yep.
that shirt giveaway soon. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.